the team of the ministers who are present here, Minister Motsoaledi, Minister Bathabile Dlamini, Minister Mahlobo, Minister Khatebe, who's chairing the IMC, Minister Nosiviwe Nqakula, Mapisa-Nqakula, Minister Gigaba, Minister Masuta, Deputy Minister Londas from DERCO, and Deputy Minister Pasla from Health. And it's over to you, Minister. Good morning, Cape Town. I didn't check whether they are connected.
Morning, Sis Pumla.
Thank you. It's over to you, Minister.
Thanks, Pumla. Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Directors Generals, senior officials, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and thank you for honoring our invitation to update the people on the progress that our government is making in restoring peace and order in our communities. Our President Jacob Zuma has appointed an inter-ministerial committee on migration to strengthen and broaden the scope of the work that was started by our ministers Mahlobo, Gigaba and Nhleko. The IMC comprises of the Minister in the Presidency, Minister of Police, Minister of Home Affairs, Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, Minister of Social Development, Health, Basic Education, State Security, Justice and Correctional Services, Small Business Development, Trade and Industry, and the Minister of Human Settlement. The mandate of this IMC has been broadened to deal with all the underlying causes and tensions between communities and foreign nationals. Some of the areas to be addressed is the implementation of our labor relations policies as they affect foreign nationals, the implementation of the laws that govern business licenses, the country's border management, and generally the country's migration policies. In the coming weeks, the IMC will work with all the affected parties so as to seek a lasting solution to the issues raised by our communities and foreign nationals. We are happy to indicate that the consultation processes have already begun. The National Joint Operational and Intelligence Structure, the NETJOINTS, which is the structure for coordinating our government's response to emergencies of this nature, has been activated. It continues to operate on a 24-hour basis to coordinate the plans of the various government departments so as to restore peace and order in many communities. A technical committee comprising of senior officials and director generals of affected departments will provide the critical support on the intensive work that needs to be done in dealing with the root causes of these tensions. These two structures provide the necessary support to the IMC. On the 22nd of April, the President convened a meeting of stakeholders in South Africa to discuss our country's migration policy and how various sectors can work with government to promote orderly migration and good relations between our citizens and other nationals. This meeting was attended by business, sports, trade union movement, arts and sports fraternities, religious leaders, community formations, youth, children, disabled persons, and traditional authorities. The participants were unanimous in condemning and rejecting the attacks against foreign nationals. They further pledged their firm commitment to work within their constituencies to build social cohesion. They also pledged to support the interventions of government in tackling genuine concerns that have been raised by communities and foreign nationals. The President also invited representatives of the foreign nationals who are residing in South Africa. Over 50 representatives of the foreign nationals attended the meeting last Friday, the 24th of April. All participants as well were unanimous in acknowledging and commending government's efforts to stop these attacks. They also relate their own experiences in their everyday lives in our country. They committed to work together with South African authorities to address these challenges. A number of suggestions emerged from these consultations. Over the past week as well, over 77 public engagements were undertaken by ministers and deputy ministers. Our executive also used these platforms to listen to the concerns of various communities. They also condemned the various acts against foreign nationals. Provincial governments and local municipalities also joined in their respective constituencies in condemning the attacks on foreign nationals. The majority of peace-loving South Africans were again unanimous in condemning the acts of criminality perpetrated against foreign nationals. They have equally expressed their frustrations on issues such as crime, especially drugs, illegal trading, and illicit economic activities by some of the foreign nationals. There were also a number of public condemnations expressed in various marches by South Africans. Artists have expressed their own condemnation using their respective platforms. Our country took to the social media to launch campaigns that stops attacks on foreign nationals and pledging solidarity with foreign nationals living in our country. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation, DIRCO, has also engaged with African diplomats that are resident in South Africa. The engagements explain our position, especially on the interventions to deal with the acts of criminality. DIRCO further continues to engage in other foreign missions in our country regarding their concerns and queries relating to the well-being of their nationals. We are reaching out to reassure the global community that South Africa is stable and open to business. As a government, we are satisfied that operations on the ground by our law enforcement agencies have equally yielded positive results. Peace and calm has returned in communities that were affected by these violent attacks. Our government is determined to restore and maintain order within our communities. Operation Fiela is aimed at ridding our country of illegal weapons, drug dens, prostitution rings, and other illegal activities. This operation is a multidisciplinary interdepartmental operation. Fiela is a Sesotho word for sweep, ukuchanyela ngesizulu. And that is exactly what we intend to do. We want to sweep our public places clean so that our people can be and feel safe. The focus of this operation will be on the following crimes, amongst others: illicit drugs, contraband, undocumented migrants, human trafficking and prostitution, hijacked and condemned buildings, illegal possession of firearms and ammunition, unlicensed business, management of RDP houses, illegal occupation of land, illegal goods and products. As we speak, our law enforcement agencies are deployed on the ground in different parts of the country to ensure that peace and stability is restored. The South African Police Service is the lead agency in this operation, supported by provincial and municipal traffic departments and all IMC member departments. Our President has deployed the South African National Defence Force for specific operations in support of our men and women in blue. To date, This operation has yielded the following. 265 suspects have been arrested and charged in relation to 150 cases of public violence around the country. 423 suspects wanted in connection with other crimes have been traced. 165 undocumented migrants were arrested in the process of deporting to their respective countries. Search and seizure operations in Mayfair, Johannesburg, last night yielded the following. 144 illegal immigrants were arrested, 200 counterfeit DVDs were confiscated, 80 small bank bags of dagga have been confiscated, and 2 air rifles. In Alexander Cluster Hostel, Johannesburg, that was on the 22nd and 23rd of April. One suspect was arrested for illegally dealing in liquor, one suspect for illegal possession of a South African National Defence Force uniform, and the following items were confiscated. 12 kgs of dagga, 1 panga knife, 1 suspected stolen laptop, and in Hillbrow Cluster Holheta Hostel on the 21st and 22nd of April, 11 people were arrested for dealing in liquor, possession of dagga, as well as possession of suspected stolen property. 2 people arrested for negligent handling of firearms. 67 illegal immigrants were arrested. In Pretoria Central and Sunnyside, on the 27th of April, 8 illegal immigrants were arrested. 7 fines were issued for contravention of bylaws. 1 stolen vehicle recovered, 2 knives, and 25 bags of dagga were confiscated. Now we've got the details of the victims of violence. We have communicated that 7 people lost their lives during the recent outbreak of violence with foreign nationals. The total number of those who lost their lives is 7. The following are the names of the deceased persons who have been positively linked to these violent attacks. The name of the deceased foreign nationals: Marcus Naitas, an Ethiopian who was petrol bombed in Umlazi. Investigations are continuing. Movo, a Zimbabwean, attacked by a mob in Chatsworth. Investigations are ongoing. Dava Sebastio, a Mozambican, who was attacked by a mob in Verulam. Investigations are ongoing. Shawofik Shawof Ul Alam from Bangladesh, gunshot at Blessed Liar. And South African citizens who were victims of this violence: Thabo Owen Mzobe, gunshot in Dozoma. 2 South African males have already been arrested. Ayanda Dlamini, a South African, gunshot in Begitemba at Umlazi. Somali national arrested. Petros Dlamini, a South African, in Chatsworth. Investigations continue. Preliminary investigations revealed that the death of Emmanuel Sithole related to an act of criminality and is therefore not included in the table that we have just released. Once again, the IMC, on behalf of government, extends its deepest condolences to the families of those deceased and wishes those injured a speedy recovery. Our criminal justice system is ready to deal with perpetrators. The National Prosecuting Authority has given priority to the prosecution of cases that are related to attacks against foreign nationals. Perpetrators of these crimes can expect that prosecutors will ask courts to impose sentences of direct imprisonment. To ensure speedy prosecutions in these cases, the Department of Justice and the National Prosecuting Authority have set up dedicated courts with magistrates, prosecutors, and interpreters to address the situation in KwaZulu-Natal. As of now, the dedicated courts have been put in place in Chatsworth, Umlazi, Nduzuma, and the Durban Magistrates Court. The South African Police Service has allocated detectives within all provinces to expedite the investigations in cases related to violence against foreign nationals. We are not taking a business-as-usual approach. We want to ensure that the perpetrators of these vile acts are dealt with as speedily as possible. Provision of support and reintegration has been done by the government and continues to actively support displaced foreign nationals at shelters. The Department of Social Development is leading this intervention by providing food, shelter, and other basic necessities. Psychosocial support in the form of trauma counseling and debriefing services are being provided to individuals on site at these shelters. The Social Development Trauma Counseling Call Center is operational 24 hours a day. We encourage those who require counseling services to call 0800 428 428, 0800 428 428. We have thus far provided 2,000 mattresses, food, blankets, dignity bags, baby formula, clothing items to displaced persons at various shelters. The South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, has established help desk to manage any inquiries and complaints from displaced persons at these shelters. The Department of Social Development as well conducted an assessment in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng temporary shelters to establish the immediate needs, especially of women and children. Pregnant women and people with disabilities have been referred to secure shelters. Retired social workers were also deployed to the temporary shelters to strengthen the psychosocial services. Reports that some foreign nationals have begun to return to their communities are very encouraging. As the situation continues to stabilize, we call on foreign nationals who are still in shelters to work within the departments of cooperative governance and traditional affairs and community safety to ensure a smooth reintegration process. We further urge communities to open their arms to returning foreign nationals and to assist in their reintegration. As a result of some displaced persons returning to their communities, the Elsburg shelter was officially closed on the 23rd of April. Those who are not as yet ready to be reintegrated have been accommodated at the Primrose shelter. On healthcare, the Department of Health closely monitors, coordinates, and delivers health and medical services to foreign nationals in any area needed, as well as the temporary shelters that have been established. The following services are being offered to displaced persons at various shelters: emergency medical services, primary health care services at temporary shelters, communicable disease control, environmental health services, health promotion, forensic pathology services, mental health services. The Department of Home Affairs, as per their mandate, ensures that all persons in South Africa are properly registered. Those persons who are in the country illegally are either detained for prosecution or deportation. The department is currently assisting displaced persons to verify their status. In cases where documents have been lost or stolen during this violence, the Department of Home Affairs checks the system and reissue the relevant documentation. In cases where the displaced persons have no documentation or they are in the country illegally, the department still captures their details. Their information and fingerprints are captured in order to provide documentation to facilitate their repatriation. The department also is working closely with foreign missions in our country to facilitate the return home of those who are illegal in South Africa. Our government has also worked very closely with the relevant foreign missions in South Africa to ensure the smooth repatriation of those who wish to voluntarily return to their home countries. We have thus far repatriated a total of 1,997 undocumented migrants from both KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng temporary shelters. The breakdown is as follows: Malawi, 911, Mozambique, 316, Zimbabwe, 753, and Tanzania, 17. The total number of documented persons who are awaiting repatriation is 1,507. We will continue to engage with their missions to ensure a smooth process. We are unyielding in our firm commitment to ensure that these shameful attacks against foreign nationals never happen again in our country. We are therefore committed to finding a lasting solution to this problem. Through the appointment of the IMC with an all-encompassing focus on issues related to migration, President Zuma has demonstrated our government's commitment to addressing the underlying causes. We believe that issues of migration can only be resolved by taking a holistic approach that deals with all issues highlighted by communities. This includes identifying and resolving challenges highlighted by local traders. The IMC, working with the Department of Home Affairs, will address the challenges around migration. The Ministry of Small Business Development has also been tasked with identifying the issues that are relevant to small business. The consultations that have been held in the past week will provide a very useful resource in seeking to find a lasting solution to the challenges of migration. Our country, South Africa, continues to welcome other Africans, and we are very encouraged to note that even with the tragic events of the past weeks, Africans from other countries of Africa still consider South Africa a safe place to visit. During the month of March, 10,548 people from Ethiopia, Malawi, Mozambique, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe visited South Africa. From the beginning of April to date, we have welcomed 13,533 people from the same countries. We are heartened by that our brothers and sisters on the continent still consider our country a multicultural society that welcomes and promotes interaction among people of different backgrounds. We want to reassure those who have plans to travel to South Africa that our government is in charge. The violence has stopped. We are now working hard to ensure that nobody within the borders of our country is victimized based on their country of origin. We have noted reports in the media that indicated that we have only had one conviction in the aftermath of the 2008 violence against foreign nationals. We would like to categorically place it on record that these claims are far from the truth. The National Prosecuting Authority list of serious cases following the 2008 attacks on foreign nationals, dated 28 July 2009, indicates that 79 cases recorded led to convictions. These included convictions for public violence, robbery, housebreaking and theft, malicious damage to property, murder, assault, intimidation, and possession of dangerous weapons. Sentences for public violence range between 3 and 6 years imprisonment, For robbery, up to 9 years imprisonment were imposed. Housebreaking, up to 9 years. Murder, up to 15 years. Assault and malicious injury to property, 4 years. Intimidation, up to 5 years imprisonment. 4 instances of rape, sentences 15 years, 25 years, and life imprisonment were imposed in those 4 cases. South Africans embrace diversity. The outpouring of love, the outpouring of support to foreign nationals, as well as the condemnation of these attacks, bear out our view that the majority of South Africans are not xenophobic. We encourage our communities to continue to work with government to ensure that there is lasting peace. You can be part of the solution by saying no to violence and reporting those who are bent on using violence to destabilize our society to the police. We urge anyone with information on plans to cause violence or those who have witnessed acts of violence to conduct Crime Stop at 086 00 10111 or the South African Police Service emergency number 10111.
Thank you, Minister. At this point, we'll entertain questions. Can I start with Cape Town?
Thank you, Chairperson. We have 3 hands in this round. You're number 1, number 2, number 3. Over to you, Mike.
Thanks. Hi, Mr. Mike Cohen from Bloomberg News. Could you tell how long you envision the army remaining on the ground in the hotspot areas? And then secondly, could you just tell us where we stand with Nigeria and the withdrawing of the envoy? What discussions have been held with regard to that issue, and when do you expect the Nigerian diplomats to be back at their posts? Thanks.
Hi, good morning. Bianca Capozorio from Times Media. I just want you to expand on this act of criminality in which Emmanuel Sithole was allegedly killed. And what was it? Because as far as I know, he wasn't robbed. He still had money and a phone. And how was it different to the other xenophobic attacks, which are also acts of criminality? And then just could the Minister of Social Development please comment on allegations this week that she was berating people in the camps for taking mattresses and help from the EFF? Thanks.
Morning, Ministers. Paul Vecchiato, Business Day. How do the police determine that someone is a victim of xenophobic violence? The crime administration system the police use has no field for xenophobic violence. It's got a field for murder, assault, and so on, but nothing for that. So if you can just tell us, because 3 of the victims here are South African citizens, so how do we determine that those were acts of xenophobic violence? Secondly, the repatriation of illegal foreigners. Is that being done on a voluntary basis, or is that just part of our normal process? And then are any South Africans being repatriated from countries where they've been attacked, such as Mozambique and that? And will government consider paying compensation to legal foreign people who have been victims of xenophobic violence? Thank you.
That would be all, Chairperson, in this round. Thank you.
Thank you. Ministers.
The first question, I didn't get it.
The question was, how long are we intending to remain on the ground?
Minister, could you say how long you envision the army being deployed in the hotspots to quell the violence? And I don't know if you got the second part, which was, where do we stand in talks with Nigeria about the diplomatic spat that's arisen as a result of these attacks? Thanks.
The issue of the Defence Force, I'll ask Minister of Defence to respond to that. And then on the act of criminality around Sithole and Alexander, either the Minister of State Security or the Police Commissioner or General Mawela to respond to that. On the issues around mattresses and EFF, the Minister of Social Development will answer that question. and how to detect xenophobic attacks and differentiate them from ordinary criminality. I think the police also will respond to that. On the repatriation, I'll ask Minister Gigaba to respond to that.
It has to be international relations. It's people being repatriated from outside South Africa, Mozambique.
Oh, okay. Dirko has disappeared. Oh, he's still there. Oh. On the issue of Nigeria, South Africa still has very cordial relations with the Federal Republic of Nigeria. As we speak, our president has been invited to the inauguration of the President-elect General Buhari. We still have investments in Nigeria. Our companies such as MTN, ShopRite, Standard Bank still enjoy good business in Nigeria. And equally, those from Nigeria who've got investment in South Africa, such as Dangote, who's building a cement factory in Northwest Province in Lichtenberg, being the single biggest African investor in our economy. All those continue unabated. Minister of Defense.
Thank you very much, Minister Khatebe. Thank you for the question. Well, for as long as the police are conducting the kind of operations which they are involved in now, the Defence Force will be there to provide support. So in the event, we have, the police have planned for operations for X number of months for a specific reason. We will then remain on the ground to give support to the police. Thank you.
Minister of State Security.
Well, with respect to the case that was reported of a Mozambican national attacked in Alexandra, we will know that in terms of the eyewitnesses, it was just pure robbery that actually happened. The fact of the matter that they never took a cell phone, a wallet, it does not make it not to be a criminal matter. We are aware that the individuals involved, with the support of our communities, they've been brought to book, of which we have commended the community of Alexandra. Also the work that has been done by the South African police services. We know that there were items like cigarettes that were being stolen, but will not actually go to the details because that matter is already in the courts. And it was just a clear matter that was not related to these issues. The last matter, we know that our classification of the incident, we're looking at the period when the incident started to flare up, and we're able to say these are the incidents that our law enforcement agencies, they could clearly identify that they are related to these incidents because of the work that our detectives and the whole security cluster is doing on the ground. Thank you.
Minister Dlamini.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think, firstly, we must remind everyone here that there's been a process and procedure of donations to temporary facilities and committees that have both South African officials and foreign nationals have been serving in these committees. And then that secondly, the UN has been repeatedly saying that the media should not go in there. And then thirdly, social development is the custodian of the Children's Act. But lastly, in that situation, there was insensitivity and opportunism that was meant to drive the anger of the foreign nationals towards government. And we had to remind everyone that the president of the country stopped everything, could not go to Indonesia so as to look into this issue. And after that hula baloo, we actually had a meeting with the leaders of the area and then have a bigger meeting with people that stay in that temporary facility. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thanks, sir. Deputy Minister Lenders.
Okay. Machine work, yes, no. Through our missions and consulates, DIRCO has made it clear that they are available to assist any and all South African citizens who request or require assistance to return home. With regard to the demand for compensation, there has been no decision taken either by DIRCO or government to provide compensation to any such persons for now. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'll take questions from Pretoria. Seeing your first hand.
Good day, everybody. My name is Johnny Sai. I'm with the African News Agency. Just wanted to ask to any minister, please. We've seen the retaliatory actions by other African countries. Let's say there were protests in Malawi, Zimbabwe, and other countries. I just wanted to know, through the formal channels, what message are you getting from the African countries? And does this matter? Will we hear it in African summits? Do they indicate that they want to raise the matter through the African Union, SADC, and other countries, and other forums? Sorry, thank you so much.
Next one was Yoli Saya.
Yoli Sanjamela, SABC Television News. Just to follow up on the Cape Town colleague on Nigeria, DIRCO a couple of days ago released quite a strong statement against the government of Nigeria. And they're making references, the statement rather makes references to the deaths of South Africans in that Pastor Joshua Church in Nigeria, and Boko Haram issues, and the kidnapping of the girls that have not been returned. Perhaps a really justified statement from the South African government point of view, but do you think it helps strengthening relations with that country, or it just worsens them? This is, just to add, this is of course taking cognizance of the fact that Minister Jeff Radebe has already said the relations with that country are still cordial.
Thank you. Thank you. ANN?
Neria from ANN7. This could any minister. This is just with regards to what the foreign national representatives told the president last week, Friday. One of them, who was representing the Pakistani national, the Bangladesh nationals, he said no matter how much you put, how much of the army you put at your border post, President, how much you strengthen your home affairs, we'll always find our way into South Africa, whether we bore holes or whichever way, whether we swim our way here, we'll always find our way here, whether legally or illegally. We can, the president should remember something like that, or whoever who was at that conference. I just want to find out how you feel about such statements made by foreign nationals. And another one was that, how do we conclude these attacks? Do we still say there was xenophobia or what? Because this question comes after the Department of Arts and Culture and the president yesterday also said this was not actually xenophobia. We can say it was just a scramble for resources. And this is something that was found during these the committees when he was meeting with people, and this is something that can also come out of the reports eventually. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the only three, and it's going to go on. Ministers, those are the last three questions.
I think the President, in his address to the nation yesterday, on the first question, indicated very clearly that if it's on the agenda, South Africa, and the President will be ready to give a formal report to any forum, such as the SADC, which is taking place in Harare tomorrow, or to the AU, which is going to be taking place in June, in Johannesburg, or at the United Nations in September. So there is no issue on that one. So as far as we're concerned, we reiterate our position that we still have cordial relations with all the members of the African Union. Our information thus far indicates that, and we want to consolidate that, South Africa being one of those countries that put their shoulder to the wheel to ensure that Agenda 2063 must be implemented. The interview yesterday is not an official position of the South African government. As I've said, our relations with Nigeria are very cordial. The sentiments expressed by one official about Pakistan and Bangladesh, my interpretation as a person who was there, was their eagerness to come to South Africa. In fact, one of them said, South Africa is an icon of politics, of economy and social activity. Everybody in Africa wants to come to South Africa. So that's the impression that I got from that statement, not in a literal sense that they're going to be building tunnels to come to South Africa. So those colleagues who were there had the same impression as I had. Violence is violence. Murder is murder, whether you call it xenophobic or what. The President has consistently stated that the majority of South Africans, 52 million South Africans, are not xenophobic. And that has been demonstrated by the various marches that have been led by civil society, the church leaders, ordinary South Africans, including foreign nationals. They themselves, they're with the President on Friday, they don't feel that our country is xenophobic. But there are those few individuals, somebody said it on TV, I think it was, can't remember the name of this person. He even counted them, that about 100 people have caused this mayhem to damage the reputation of South Africans. Our policies, our laws in South Africa are very clear. That is why we've shown you the figures. Those who were involved in this type of activities in 2008, our law enforcement agencies have arrested them. Our prosecuting authority have successfully prosecuted them, and our judicial officers have convicted many of them, others getting 25 years, others even life imprisonment, reflecting that there is no room for lawlessness in South Africa. Wherever it rears its ugly head, we're going to chop it.
Thank you very much. Yoliswa?
Just a quick follow-up. The minister, if I heard correctly, saying the interview that was done yesterday is not a reflection of the government stance on this. What interview, perhaps, Minister, are you referring to? Because I was referring to a statement by DERCO, which was released by Clayson Munyela, the spokesperson, and it was sent to the media officially on behalf of DERCO. Thank you.
Thanks.
There is a follow-up question in Cape Town, Chairperson.
Yes. Yes, we're listening.
Thank you. Baba Londenza from Independent Newspapers. Just maybe a question for the Defense Minister or the State Security Minister. The deployment of Defense Force members into those hostels in Town and I think Alexandra has come under some criticism from various quarters, in particular, the violation of human rights of these hostel dwellers who were dragged out of their rooms and lying on the ground in their underpants, etc. The question is, what has this exercise actually achieved, Minister? This deployment of defense forcemen, what has it achieved? What will it achieve in the long term when it comes to xenophobia? I mean, will it change mindsets? Will it uplift those communities that are affected? I'm trying to understand the deployment of SADF members. Thank you.
Thank you.
Minister Paul Vecchiotto from Business Day again. Just follow up. First of all, when will the President be informing Parliament of the deployment of the SANDF personnel? By law, he has to write a letter to Parliament informing the legislature of this. Secondly, for the police, these search and seizure operations, Mayfair, Alexandra Hospital, Hillbrow Cluster, Sunnyside Cluster. In terms of the law, the police have to get court warrants for this. Were those warrants applied for and obtained? Thank you.
That's all, Chairperson. Thank you.
Those are the last questions, ministers. Thanks.
Minister of Defense. On the defense.
Thank you very much, Minister Khatebe. What has the deployment of the SANDF achieved? I think in the first instance, we need to make it clear that there was an outbreak of xenophobic attacks in the country. Whether it happened in one part of the country, in one province, or in one corner of the province itself, but these were vicious attacks which resulted in murders of people. The second matter is that, of course, after the attack on Friday, on Sunday in Alex, South Africans were shocked. All of us were shocked by the footage we saw on TV and what we saw in the Sunday papers. And it became necessary for the net joints to look into the matters and then make a recommendation as to what needs to happen. We are satisfied that it was the correct thing to do for the police to request for assistance when it was necessary for them to do so. We're happy that we've been part of those operations, because the purpose of having the South African National Defence Force being part of those, what do you call it? Yes. The purpose was to make sure that we are there to provide all the support and protection to the SANDF, to the police. One thing you need to understand is that when you are going to conduct an operation such as the ones we have conducted in the past week, right? As police enter some of these areas, you then need to have your SANDF on the outer perimeter. The idea of this is to cordon off the area, to make sure that there are no items which are taken out, and that there is no one going in for any other purpose other than what is happening at that point in time. So we cordon off areas for purposes of search and seizure, and it is the correct thing to do. And it's just that I think that, Minister Khatebe, I should say this, that South Africans, you know, before the deployment of the South African National Defence Force, everybody was calling on the army. Where's the army? Where's the army? Now that the army is deployed, what do they want? It's an overkill. It's this and that. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But what is important is that, what does the Constitution say? The Constitution provides for the Defence Force to come in support of the police when a need arises. The matter of Parliament, remember we have 7 days within which the President should report to Parliament in the event of the deployment of the SANDF. 7 days, 7. So even if, for instance, there hasn't been deployment right now, the point is, I mean, there hasn't been a report to Parliament, but we have 7 days within which we should do that. Now, did you see this? Does it come from you, Minister? Okay, thank you. At the point when a request is made to the SANDF, right? A minute is then prepared by the SANDF. And that minute is then presented to the President. And then the President evaluates the information at his disposal. And then, of course, once he's taken the decision to deploy, he then signs the minute. And then, of course, the minute is accompanied by a letter which is presented to the Chair and the Speaker of Parliament. Okay? So that process now between the President and Parliament really is not a process which we necessarily check when the President submitted, but we know for sure that he has 7 days within which to do so. So the Minister in the Presidency, I am certain that he will be able to tell you exactly when that letter was sent to the Speaker and the Chairperson of the NCOP. I think that's it, Minister.
Yeah, just to conclude that the President has informed Parliament on the 24th of April, and the permission is until the 30th of June 2015.
Well, with respect to the operations that we have codenamed Operation Fiela, we must know that it is conducted within the laws that are applicable in the country. In terms of those search and seizures. But more importantly, we must also commend the multidisciplinary team that is led by the South African Police Services, who are receiving a very good support from South Africans to say, clean our public spaces, clean out of those criminal activities that are taking place. And we are starting to yield results. As the statistics that our minister in the Presidency, Minister Hadebe, was reporting, there's a lot of good activities that have happened on the ground. And we should be able to support. What was very heartening was also to note even the non-nationals saying this is a good operation. And this is an operation that is intended to reclaim our space, hand it back to communities, because we have no other agenda except only one agenda, to ensure that all people within our own country are and they feel safe. And that particular operation will continue. There is not going to be a place where that is going to become a safe haven for criminals, or an area where we will say no one could be able to have freedom of movement or association in those particular communities. But all our operations, where they are dictated by the law and the prescripts, and we are satisfied as a leadership that our operations are conducted as such. Thank you.
Just lastly, just want to reiterate that we have cordial relations with the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If we had had a negative sentiment out of that statement that is not reflective of government's position, we continue to have very good relations. As I've indicated, even our president has been invited to the inauguration of the incoming president, and our diplomatic relations between the two countries still exist and continue, and we believe will be moving from strength to strength.
Thank you very much. We've come to the end of this media briefing, and thank you very much to the ministers and the deputy ministers. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Yes.